Okay, welcome to part 2 of Create a Simple Animated Character titled Building in After Effects. In this section we're going to be adjusting our project settings and preferences. We're going to import our Illustrator character into After Effects. We're going to scale the comp and character. We're going to create arms and legs using the shapes and the pen tool. And finally we're going to be creating shadows using the trim path function. So we're going to open After Effects now. And the first thing we're going to do here, we're going to go into our preferences, into general, and we're going to turn default spatial interpolation to linear. And there's a very good but very boring reason as to why we're going to do this. I'm not going to explain it now, as it's a bit obtuse. The other thing we're going to do, as part of our housekeeping, we're going to go File, Project Settings, and we want to display the time on our timeline here in frames rather than seconds, and we'll see why when we get to animation. Okay. So now we're going to import our Illustrator file into After Effects, and we're going to go File, Import, Import File, and inside my Skillshare folder, in the Illustrator folder, I've got my character. Now mine's called Character 5, yours probably should be called Character. Now the important thing here to note is that we don't want to import this as footage. We're not importing it as a flat object. We want to import it as something that we can move the independent layers within. So we want to import it as a composition. And you'll notice that these two, the folder and the composition have now been imported. The folder contains the arms, legs, head and torso layers individually. And if we double click on the composition folder, we see we've got head, front arms, torso, and arms and legs, just as we had in the Illustrator file. So we have our composition on screen here with our man in it, and you'll notice here is the scale of the composition. So we're seeing it at half size at 50%. At full size, this is still quite a small composition. So what we're going to do, we're going to go Composition and Composition Settings, and we're going to make this 1920 by 1080 Full HD, and we're going to make it 200 frames long. There we go. Now if we zoom back out, we'll see that our character is now small in frame. So what we're going to do is open up, select all our layers here. We're going to go into Transform, and we're going to slide the scaler up. Now you'll notice that he starts to become slightly blurry, and that's because when you import Illustrator files, you need to do what's called constantly rasterize them, which means use them as vectors rather than as rastered images. So all we're going to do to compensate for that is click the little constant rasterize icon here, and then our character's fixed, and we can see if we view him at full size that has perfect resolution, good anti-aliasing around the edges. There we go. Okay, so we've got our character now, and what we're going to do is start to replace the arms and legs that we've drawn in Illustrator with shape layers that we're going to be able to animate. So first thing we're going to do, we're going to select everything here, we're going to open it up, and we want the opacity here. So if you select both the arms and legs layers, we're going to drop the opacity from 100% just down to about 20, just so that they're a guide now and we can draw over the top of them. So recompress them. Now you want to select the pen tool next, making sure that none of these layers are selected. So you don't have you've not got the head selected there. You want to just click on the comp so that nothing's selected. You've got no layer selected. First thing we do, place a point where the shoulder is and draw our stroke just like you would in Illustrator. So we've created a new shape layer. It's called Shape Layer 1, but we're going to rename this. We're going to call it Arm Front. There we go. Now if you open up the arm, you'll see that we've got contents in here, and inside this, all the parameters of this line are expressed. So if we open up the path, you can see that we've got the path that we've created, and we can move that about with the mouse. But we want to focus on the stroke. So inside here you've got the width, the opacity, the color, and the way the ends of the lines are expressed just like you would do in Illustrator. So the first thing we're going to do is color the arm the same as the body. The next thing we're going to do is expand the stroke width to match that of our arm already. And you'll notice here that again the bottom of the arm is flat, and we want to take the line cap and round that. So there we go. So now we have an arm as we have in Illustrator. Now we're going to do the same thing again and redraw another arm, but we want it to be exactly the same. So what we can do is Control C or edit copy, and then edit paste, and we've got a second arm here, and we're going to call this arm back. And because we want this arm to sit behind the torso, we're going to place it behind the torso in the comp. Now again, I'm going to close arm front here. I'm going to go into arm back, into the contents, into the shape, and finally into the path. We select the path, we see we've got the same path as the arm at the front. You want to press Shift and just bring up the ability to alter the path within the shape. So you select the path within the shape and just move it into position. There we go. And then we have our arm behind the body as well. So now we're going to do exactly the same thing for the legs. We'll take our pen tool, zoomed in there, and we're going to, instead of placing a single point, we're going to click and drag so we create a tangent like we would do in Illustrator for the top of the leg, and click and drag and create a tangent at the bottom. And the reason we're going to do this is so that later on when we come to animate the leg, we can make curves. So here we go, we've got shape layer 1 again, and we're going to call this leg front. And we're going to place this in front of the torso. And we're going to open it up and mess around with its parameters. So we're going to open up the stroke. We want the color to be the same as the body. We want the stroke width to match our Illustrator file. And we're going to keep the cap the same, just with the flat end for the leg. And there we go. And we're going to do the same thing again. Again, you can Control C, Control V and paste the leg into place. And then if you select the arrow tool here, you can move it about. Ooh, just about. You can do it with the arrow keys on your keyboard. Just move it into place. Now this leg is going to be called leg back, and so what we want to do is place it behind the torso. There we go. So our character's starting to look like our Illustrator file again. Now you'll notice the only thing that we're missing is that little shadow. So what we're going to do to this leg at the back, we're going to copy, edit, paste, so it sits right in front of it. We're going to call this layer leg back shadow. Again, we're going to open it up. Now you can go through the process of opening up all the layers as I've done here, or you can hit double U. That's the key U twice, and that'll bring up the parts of the path that the parts of the shape layer that you've already changed. So it's just a quick way to get into there. And we're just going to make this a little bit darker. Now, rather than making the layer itself shorter, what we're going to do is we're going to go to Add, and these are little functions that you can add to shape layers. And we're going to go to Trim Paths, and you'll notice a little Trim Paths fold down menu has appeared here. We're going to open that up, and what this is going to allow you to do is affect the length of the line of the path that you've created with the stroke. So you don't have to have the stroke run along it the whole way, and we're just going to have that sit at about 50%. And there we go. There's our character. Now what we can do finally is select the original arms and legs and arms and legs front and delete those. We're not going to need them anymore. So there we go.